Dame Lillard and his agent have been sent a warning by the NBA. We're going to talk about that, what it could mean for the Dame Lillard trade. Could this make this trade happen sooner, or could it maybe even extend it out a little bit more? We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm one of the hosts here, Haize, holding it down for the team on today's daily episode. But let's go ahead and get into it. So the NBA sent out a memo on Dame Lillard and his agent, Aaron Goodwin, and in regards to kind of this whole way that they're handling this trade request, specifically trying to kind of dictate and move everything to being just with the Miami Heat. Aaron Goodwin already had this to say in the Miami Herald on July 6th. Some teams I did call, other teams have called me. It's a respectful relationship with most teams. Truthfully, he wants to play in Miami, period. And so that is Dame Lillard's agent. We've also heard over the last couple of weeks or so that Dame Lillard's agent was contacting teams basically saying, hey, if you do trade for Dame, that's not where he wants to be. He's not going to be happy there. And not to say that, hey, he won't play there, which, you know, when you look at Dame Lillard and just how he is as a player and as a competitor, I don't really worry about Dame kind of doing kind of the antics of like a James Harden or anything like that. I expect whatever team Dame Lillard is traded to, he's going to give his all and compete for. But of course, considering that this trade request is coming because Dame does want to compete for a title, of course he has his preferred destination, and that's pairing with Jimmy Butler in Miami to make that happen, to have those two guys connect and move on. But this memo that was sent out by the NBA officially, it really calls Dame Lillard and his agent a carpet to kind of fix some things, and we're gonna key out key parts of it. So the first part was recent media reports stated Dame Lillard's agent Aaron Goodwin called multiple teams to warn them against trading for Lillard because Lillard's only desired destination is Miami. Goodwill also made public comments indicating that Lillard would not fully perform the services called for under his player contract if traded to another team. We've interviewed Goodwin and Lillard and spoke with several NBA teams to whom Goodwill spoke. Goodwin denied stating or indicating to any team Lillard will refuse to play for them. Goodwin and Lillard affirmed to us today Lillard would truly perform his services called for under his player contract in any trade scenario. We have advised Goodwin and Lillard that any future comments made privately to teams or publicly suggesting Lillard would not fully perform the services called for in his contract in the event of a trade will subject Lillard to discipline by the NBA. That's about as straight, clear-cut, and forward as you can get when it comes to the NBA stepping in and basically letting Dame and his agent know, stop the foolishness. Now, the reason why, some may ask, why is this such a problem? Dame has made his trade request known. Most people know he wants to go to Miami. Why is this such a big deal? It's simply put, by Dame and his agent's actions, it's putting the Portland Trailblazers in a situation where they may have to take a deal that's not to their liking to move Dame. Now, to their credit, the Trailblazers GM has already said it could take several months. He's willing to wait it out months before trading Dame to make sure that the team gets the right deal. But the fact of the matter is, with Dame and his agent or whatever they've been doing, it has changed the competitive balance for that trade, meaning that a team that may say, hey, I know Dame wants to go to Miami, but we think we got a pretty darn good situation here. Let's trade for Dame and give up these assets. Have heard now what Dame and his agent have been saying and doing, and like, hey, well, we're not going to trade that, which then means that it's kind of forcing the Trailblazers at that point to take whatever Miami's offer. Now, I still do fully expect this deal to go down and Dame Lillard ends up being a member of the Miami Heat when it's all said and done. But I like that the NBA and as a whole, right, teams, organizations, everyone is kind of fighting back against what's been happening with the NBA lately. And I've had a video on that earlier in the offseason. You get things like James Harden, for example, back when he wanted to get out of Houston, of course, gaining all that weight, not performing, doing those type of things. You had, which is different than like what KD did last offseason, signing his contract extension, and before he plays a single game on that extension, request a trade. Now the Brooklyn Nets end up looking him in the face and saying, no, not now. Ended up moving him in a deal that was favorable for them at the trade deadline. And that may be what happens in a position or situation like this. But ultimately, the era that we live in now where players either sign these contracts to make sure that they get their money locked in and then request their trade later, or they barely play on that deal before requesting it. Don't be surprised if that the teams just start to fight back against that, because you then put yourself in a situation to where it takes away such a big chunk of your negotiating power in a case like that. Now, public trade requests, things like that, they're never going to go fully away in any sport. It's just not going to happen, and it's unrealistic to ask or expect so. But when you have times where, like, if, for example, look at if a team did this, right? If a team, let's say in free agency, was putting out fillers and saying, hey, don't sign our guy. We can leak his medical information isn't the best. You probably shouldn't sign him, so they can really keep their guy and kind of dictate that move. The NBA would absolutely have to crack down on that, and you can't allow players to do so either. Like, and as I've said before, I still do think the most likely outcome is that he's going to be a member of the Miami Heat when it's all said and done, because that's where he wants to go. And I do think that teams are aware of that. This may get some teams back into that mix to talk and see what they can do, if they can convince Dame, if they think that, hey, we're going to bring in, if we bring in Dame, that is the final piece. We just need to sell Dame on that long term. Though all those things could happen. But one thing that you don't want to get yourself into either is a Kawhi Leonard situation. Yes, he got the Raptors their title that they have coveted and they've wanted, and that fan base will always hold him in a high regard for that. But he immediately left. And yeah, he's had his own struggles since he did leave, but he immediately left after that. And so those are the kind of things that you want to look at. I know there have been some talks, maybe the Brooklyn Nets get involved, the Philadelphia 76ers, especially with the James Harden part, may try to get involved, things like that. But I think when it's all said and done, Dame is focused on going to the Miami Heat, forming a big three in a way with him, Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And then and the thing is that I'm sure the Miami Heat are motivated to get this done now, right? The last thing that we heard is that they're still a little ways off on a deal. There were some hangups there on that deal, coming to fruition. But like, that's ultimately where he wants to go, and that's where ultimately he probably needs and wants to be as well. But when you're looking at the situation for the Miami Heat, if they trade for Dame Lillard now, let's say they trade for him before the end of this week, you're going to get free agents like a Christian Wood, like a Kelly Oubre Jr., right? Some of the top free agents that we're still looking at and saying, why are these players not signed to teams, that are probably going to be willing to take a vet minimum to help fill out the bench of the Miami Heat, which they're going to need to do at that point in time, right? Because the framework we've heard around the deal is really built around Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, who I still like a lot on that team, and some other players, but that team's going to have to fill out their bench on top of what they've already depleted. And if Kyle Lowry's involved in that too, that's going to mean that the Miami Heat are going to try their best to recruit free agents at that vet minimum and what they have available to bring in and add in talent to that team. And they're going to be free agents that are more than happy to come to the Miami Heat to push for a title and kind of rehab their value on the trade market too, if they only end up taking a one-year deal. So it's best involved for everyone to get this deal done. The NBA steps in, they put their foot down, and now we'll see if this helps this deal get done before the start of the season, which I'm sure the Miami Heat would hope for, but I don't know necessarily if it's coming. That's my time. Make sure you guys are following the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, you can leave a text message and our voicemail for the show, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything basketball related, and I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.